When we talk about the mystery beyond scientific limits, we are not just talking about things we don't yet understand, we are talking about the very edge of human knowledge, where logic ends and wonder begins. Science has always been our greatest tool to uncover the workings of the universe, to measure, to explain, and to define. But there are moments, rare and unsettling, when science encounters something that refuses to fit inside its formulas, when the human experience reaches beyond the grasp of reason. That is where Timothy Caldwell's story begins, a reminder that even in an age of progress, there are corners of creation still untouched by comprehension. In 1867, the world was shifting rapidly. Industrial machines roared, new inventions promised to make life predictable and efficient, and scientists spoke boldly of a future where every mystery would bow before the mind of man. Yet, in the quiet countryside, a boy was born who broke every law that men thought they had written in stone. Timothy's body seemed immune to pain and decay, his pulse could vanish for hours, and his skin stayed cool even when the sun burned fiercely. The more doctors studied him, the less they understood. Instruments failed. Notes conflicted. Every test left them more confused than before. Science, that proud voice of certainty, suddenly had no words. What happens when knowledge stands face to face with something it cannot name? The answer is not always humility, sometimes it's fear. People around Timothy tried to explain him through every known theory. Some said he was a medical miracle, others whispered that he was cursed or divine. Scientists dissected his mystery with microscopes and measurements, yet they forgot that not every truth can be trapped in glass. The human mind, for all its brilliance, struggles to accept that some things exist outside its borders. We crave order. We demand cause and effect. But Timothy was chaos wearing a calm face, a living contradiction that made the confident tremble and the faithful fall to their knees. This is where the limits of science reveal something far deeper about us as people. We are not only explorers of the physical world, we are prisoners of our need for explanation. When we face the unexplainable, our first instinct is not to wonder, it's to control, to dissect, to name. Because if we can name it, it cannot frighten us. But when we can't, we are reminded of our smallness, our fragility in a universe that holds secrets older than time itself. Timothy Caldwell's existence was like a mirror held up to humanity, showing how quickly our confidence collapses when reason runs out of air. The scientists who studied him didn't fail because they lacked intelligence, they failed because they refused to imagine that perhaps some mysteries are meant to be witnessed, not solved. They were searching for answers in a place that demanded awe instead of analysis, and that's the point where science reaches its most sacred limit, not where it runs out of data, but where it touches the divine unknown. Because at its best, true science is not arrogance, it is curiosity guided by humility. It is the courage to say, we do not know, but we are willing to look closer. Yet in Timothy's case, that humility was rare. The doctors who came to see him left with their pride shaken. Some abandoned their research entirely. Others became obsessed, unable to sleep, tormented by the idea that a child could exist outside the rules of biology. The mystery consumed them, not because it was supernatural, but because it reminded them that nature itself might still hold secrets beyond human reach. Every observation of Timothy was a whisper from the unknown, saying, "You have not yet touched the edges of creation." And so, his story stands as a testament to that fragile line between knowledge and mystery, between the known and the infinite, between the language of science and the silence of the divine. It asks us to question what we truly mean when we say we understand something. Is understanding just the ability to explain it, or the willingness to accept it even when it refuses to be explained? Faith tested by the unexplainable is one of the most unsettling trials a person or a society can face. It is easy to believe when everything aligns with our understanding, when the world behaves as we expect it to. But faith begins to tremble when something enters the picture that logic cannot defend, when belief and evidence seem to stand on opposite sides of the same mystery. Timothy Caldwell's existence in 1867 became one of those moments when faith was not simply questioned by outsiders, it was shaken from within. His life forced people to confront whether their trust in God was built on understanding or surrender, whether they believed only in what could be proven or also in what could not be explained. In those days, religion shaped nearly every corner of human life. Churches stood as the moral and spiritual center of towns, and preachers spoke with the certainty that everything in creation followed divine order. Then came Timothy, a boy who seemed to live outside the boundaries of nature itself. He did not age like other children. He showed no signs of hunger or fatigue. His eyes carried an unnatural calm, as though he had seen things that no child should see. People whispered that he might be a sign, a message, or even a test sent from heaven. But as the stories spread, the line between faith and fear began to blur. The local pastor at the time, a man known for his wisdom, visited the Caldwell home. He prayed over the boy, read from the scriptures, and tried to make sense of what he saw. But even he could not reconcile the reality before him with the teachings he had spent his life defending. When faith meets something that refuses to fit inside doctrine, the believer faces a painful question: is this a failure of faith or a deepening of it? Many in the town chose denial, insisting that Timothy's condition was a trick of the devil. Others said he was proof of divine power, a miracle walking among them. In their desperate attempt to define him, they revealed the fragile foundation of their belief. Faith, real faith, is not about certainty, it is about trust in the unseen. Yet most people confuse faith with the comfort of understanding. When Timothy's mystery spread beyond his small town, priests, monks, and scholars from across the region came to see him. They debated endlessly, quoting verses, searching for signs, trying to claim him as evidence for their side. Some saw in him the power of God transcending the laws of man. Others feared he was a deception meant to test their devotion. Every opinion was a reflection of the believer's own heart, not of the boy himself. In that way, Timothy became a living mirror for faith, showing each person what they truly believed when reason fell silent. The greatest test of faith is not when we suffer, it is when we stand before something divine that refuses to be defined. The human spirit longs for order, even in its devotion to the divine. We want to understand God's plan, to trace his logic, to find cause and effect in every act of heaven. But sometimes faith demands that we believe even when the pattern disappears. In Timothy's presence, those who claimed to trust God found themselves demanding proof instead. They wanted explanation, not mystery. And that is where faith falters, when belief begins to depend on evidence rather than trust. The unexplainable forces us to look deeper into what we mean when we say we believe. If faith only survives where understanding exists, then it is no longer faith, it is agreement with reason. The true essence of belief lives where reason ends. Timothy Caldwell was not an argument against science or religion, he was a challenge to both. His existence reminded people that the universe is not a puzzle designed for us to solve, but a story written by hands greater than our own. Every heartbeat, every unanswered question, every law of nature we have yet to name, all of it calls us to humility. In the candlelit rooms where men of faith gathered to discuss the boy, the air was heavy with silence. They spoke of miracles, of divine signs, of prophecy. Yet behind their words was something more fragile, the fear that God might be closer and more mysterious than they had ever imagined. Timothy's life did not destroy faith, it exposed what kind of faith people truly carried. Whether they turned to worship or to fear, They all face the same truth: belief without mystery is only knowledge pretending to be trust. The human fear of what we can't control is one of the oldest emotions written into our nature. From the beginning of time, mankind has sought to understand and dominate the world around him: fire, wind, disease, death. We study it, measure it, and name it, believing that if we can just understand something, we can make it obey us. But the moment something defies our control, the calm of logic gives way to the storm of fear. Timothy Caldwell's presence in 1867 exposed this truth more than any scientific discovery could. He wasn't a monster, a prophet, or a myth. He was simply unknown, and that alone was enough to terrify an entire community. People didn't fear Timothy because he harmed anyone, they feared him because he could not be predicted. The laws that governed everyone else seemed to bend around him, and in a world built on patterns, that made him dangerous. Human beings crave control not just over their environment but over meaning itself. We want every event to fit a reason, every mystery to bow before an answer. When something like Timothy enters the picture, when a human being exists outside of the system we rely on, it exposes the illusion of control we've built for ourselves. It shows that beneath all our knowledge, there still lies a deep, primal terror: the fear that the universe is bigger than we can handle. In the town where Timothy grew up, people tried to rationalize his existence. Some called him blessed, others cursed. Parents warned their children to stay away, doctors wanted to take him apart in the name of medicine, and preachers spoke in whispers about divine punishment. No one could agree, but they all shared one thing in common: fear. That fear didn't come from Timothy himself, it came from within them. When people are confronted with what they can't control, they either try to destroy it or worship it. And both reactions are born from the same source: helplessness. Fear has always been the twin shadow of curiosity. The same impulse that drives us to explore the stars also drives us to build walls when something doesn't fit our understanding. In Timothy's case, the fear grew not because of anything he did but because of what he represented: the reminder that human power has limits. Every time someone tried to explain him and failed, it wasn't just a scientific disappointment, it was a blow to human pride. To admit that he couldn't be explained was to admit that control is not absolute. And that, more than anything, terrified people. The townspeople's fear spread like wildfire, feeding on rumor and imagination. At night, stories of Timothy turned into ghost tales. Some said he could stop his heartbeat and walk unseen through the woods. Others claimed he could speak to the dead, or that time itself slowed when he stared at the sky. None of it was true, but fear doesn't need truth, it needs uncertainty. The less people understood, the more their minds filled the gaps with nightmares. That's what fear does: it paints shadows where there might only be silence. Even the educated men who came to study Timothy weren't free from it. They wore confidence like armor, but inside, they trembled. Because if a single boy could exist beyond the reach of scientific law, what else might be possible? What other truths might be lurking, unmeasured and unmanageable? That question lingered heavier than any superstition. The fear of the unknown is not just about danger, it's about losing the illusion that we are in charge. Timothy reminded them, and us, that the world does not belong to our control, only to our observation. This fear is woven into every human generation. We fear storms until we can predict them, diseases until we can cure them, and mysteries until we can explain them. But the deeper fear, the one that hides behind all others, is the fear of our own limits. We do not like to feel small in a vast, indifferent universe. We do not like to face questions that cannot be answered. That's why people feared Timothy Caldwell. He was living proof that something beyond human understanding could exist, not in the heavens, not in the stories, but right before their eyes. He made people confront the uncomfortable truth that control is an illusion and that the unknown is not always meant to be conquered. So they feared him, not because he broke nature, but because he broke their sense of certainty. The human heart can tolerate many things: pain, loss, even tragedy, but not the loss of control. It shakes the very foundation of identity, forcing us to see that we are not the masters of creation, only guests within it. And when a boy like Timothy stands as evidence of that truth, the fear he awakens is not really about him, it is about us. Truth hidden in divine mystery is one of the most profound realities humanity continues to wrestle with. Every age believes it is closer to understanding the universe, closer to unlocking the secrets of creation, and yet with every discovery comes another question, another shadow that refuses to lift. Timothy Caldwell's life was one of those shadows, a riddle written by a hand that no human mind could decipher. He wasn't a miracle in the way the church wanted him to be, nor was he a scientific case that fit into any known theory. He stood somewhere in between, where truth wears silence like a cloak. His existence whispered that some truths are not lost, they are hidden, intentionally, waiting for those who are willing to see beyond explanation. In every generation, there are stories that do not fit the pattern of history. They live in the spaces between belief and doubt, where logic falters and the spirit stirs. Timothy was one such story. People came from across the region to see the boy who defied both death and decay, the boy who seemed untouched by time itself. They came seeking proof of God, proof of science, proof of something greater than themselves. But what they found was a presence that gave no answers. His calm silence, his distant gaze, and his unchanging body spoke more than any preacher's sermon or scholar's lecture. It was as if truth itself stood before them but refused to speak in human language. The divine often hides truth not to mock human curiosity but to invite humility. When something cannot be explained, it forces us to listen differently, to feel rather than calculate, to sense rather than dissect. Timothy's mystery wasn't about what could be proven, it was about what could be perceived. The people who approached him with pride found confusion. Those who came with reverence found awe. And that difference revealed something about the nature of divine truth. It isn't given to the loud, it's whispered to the still. The divine does not hide truth from us out of cruelty but to remind us that truth is sacred, and sacred things are not meant to be handled carelessly. Throughout history, men have tried to uncover every secret of existence, believing that if they could just uncover enough, they would finally find the ultimate truth. But perhaps truth was never meant to be something we could hold. Perhaps it was meant to hold us instead. Timothy's story is a quiet echo of that idea. Every attempt to explain him, to classify him, to reduce him to biology or divinity, failed because truth was not meant to be dissected. It was meant to be experienced. In his presence, people felt both wonder and unease because truth, when it stands unveiled, is both beautiful and unbearable. The divine mystery is not the absence of truth, it is the depth of it. It is the part of reality that exists beyond words, where explanations collapse under the weight of the infinite. Timothy reminded the world that truth is not always light, it can also be shadow. It can appear not to reveal but to test, not to comfort but to challenge. For those who wanted certainty, his existence was a torment. For those who sought meaning, it was revelation. The boy who science couldn't explain became a living symbol of how the divine hides its truths not in the heavens but in the quiet corners of human experience. People who saw Timothy often said there was something in his eyes, something that made them feel both seen and measured, as if he was looking through their questions and into their souls. Perhaps that was the truest expression of divine mystery, not in miracles or phenomena, but in reflection. The truth was not in the boy's unchanging flesh, but in what his existence revealed about the people around him. He showed how desperate humans are to explain God, and how rarely we stop to experience Him. The divine hides truth not because it cannot be found, but because it cannot be forced. It reveals itself in moments of surrender, not in the pride of discovery. Timothy's life was a living parable of that principle. He walked among those who sought to label him, yet he remained untouched by their conclusions. He existed as a reminder that truth, when divine, is not something we possess, it is something that possesses us. It humbles the wise, silences the proud, and awakens the searching heart to a realization far greater than knowledge itself, that the greatest truths are not those we uncover, but those that choose to reveal themselves when we finally stop demanding answers and begin to listen to the mystery.